I don't really give a shit how many people were at last weekend's rally in Melbourne. Sorry. I think you have to stop. See, Jimpy. I see people in the movement, like in the anti-lockdown movement go, there were 84 million people. It was the biggest rally ever in the history of Australia. Biggest protest in the universe. And then you're on Twitter and you see lefties going, actually, it was only 400 stops. No, it didn't. It wasn't big. No, stop. Actually, if you use the footage. And I'm like, well, it all sounds like a bit of a cope to me. You've got like the left cope, which is like, fuck, I hate how big your rallies are. And then the cooker's cope is, I thought everyone in Australia would come and recite the Braveheart speech with me. But I can say this rally dwindled, can't I? I mean, look at the fucking picture. And I think that's because the kill the bill shit was a tangible cause for once. I mean, I think that's why it exploded. Nice. They were doing something with a realistic goal for once. Marked improvement, I think, for the cookers. But in the end, the bill passed. So now they're kind of dwindling again. But, I bet, not for good. Probably just until the next big, overwrought, contrived doomsday event that they manage to successfully make each other panic about. So stay tuned for that. In the meanwhile, let's look at some dickheads from last weekend. Here's Andy Nolch, the germ who defaced Eurydice Dixon's memorial, whinging about how they took all the teddies and shit away from the diseased, piss-stained Parliament steps where anti-vaxxers were all hanging out and trading the novel coronavirus with each other.
I found out that they'd taken it and confiscated it. The council's willing to disrespect people's memorials and just confiscate it. You know what I mean? Because a few years ago, I did some graffiti that was disrespecting a memorial, right? And the leftist communist system gave me a real hard time for it and a big punishment. But the council, they can just go to anti-vaxxer or freedom people's memorial and just literally take the memorial away, right? Which is probably, I think it's even worse than if they drew a dick. We would have preferred it if they drew a dick on the memorial, but they just took the teddy bears from kids and stuff and t-shirts, they just took it away. So the government can get away with doing the most disrespectful, disgusting things. It's just not funny.
I can think of so many scenes and places where this particular germ would not be welcome for obvious reasons. Like, I can think of so few spaces where he would be tolerated in any way. He's a fucking germ. He did one of the lowest dog acts conceivable, defacing a memorial, on the morning of the day of the mass memorial event for that woman. She was raped and murdered. And his friends who took him in are like an assortment of clowns and freaks. No, that's an insult to clowns and freaks. Rapists and abusers. The worst fucking people. We are talking about the filth at the bottom of the barrel. Why would you let the guy who defaced the Eurydice Dixon memorial come and be part of your movement? It's really mind-boggling, isn't it? My last video was about yard tactics and among other strategies to keep alt-right pests out. Here's a yardie feeding Andy Nolch musk sticks like a baby bird.
So you're doing Erickson's work, you're just here for your own reasons? So rape apology isn't enough for you? Question.
What's the question?
Being a rape apologist, that's not enough?
What's that?
Being a rape apologist, that's not enough? No?
I'm not going to answer that question.
Why are you guys making assumptions about it?
It's not assumptions.
There's no assumptions. He's a misogynist. He's a misogynist.
Who draws a dick on a picture of someone who's been raped? An area where a woman was raped. Why do you think that's okay? What happens if that was you?
Everything okay? Yeah. I think so. Maybe we should get going.
But meanwhile, here's what happens when someone acts up at their events.
Let's build community in rural areas. It is an act of safety, country living. Never stop meeting up. Never stop meeting up.
Okay, so that's nice. That's good. Thank you to the Peacemakers, Nick Patterson's group, for, really hurting that middle-aged woman. Very good. Good job. Okay, so this kid and his mum went to the rally and they tried to egg Craig Kelly. And, good on him, frankly. I mean, Craig Kelly's a fucking animal, and if an egg is violence, then why don't you go out and arrest all these hyper-violent teenage boys who've ever egged a house? Some fucking perspective. We're not tipping over fucking cop cars. This kid tried to throw an egg at a fucking politician who deserves a lot more than that, frankly. But anyway, their weird sense of mob justice is to drag him up to Avi Yemeni, to have Avi milk some content out of him. Their thought is, here's a bad person. What content can our anointed influencer cast milk out of them? Yeah, fucking cracked, man. Like I was yelling at them in Brisbane. They're not activists. They're just daydreamers. Streamers and daydreamers, mate. That's what they are. Anyway, so don't fucking whinge to me about our using our words to ruin the footage of an occasional bad faith live stream or two. Not while you cunts are doing that shit. You know, Chimpy, I was thinking about the Kill the Bill stuff. And I realised that, for people who came along into that whole debate with the whole Dictator Dan, frame of reference, like this idea that Dan loves lockdowns and would love to keep doing more of them, like declaring them unilaterally for political purposes. I was thinking about them and I was thinking, why do they think he would want to do that? They say that lockdowns shore up his electoral chances, next state election. Andrews is on a strong footing to win the next election, yeah, sure. But that's because Andrews is a titan of Labor power in Victoria. He's very popular and Victoria's very engaged with him, Chimpy. So suggesting that this is all worth it for him just to win another election that he probably would have won it anyway, particularly running against Matthew fucking Guy. Well, I just think it's a bit naive about power, Chimpy. Another argument about a benefit to him, and this one's a bit deeper down the rabbit hole, Chimpy, but the idea that he wants to keep you at home and monitor you and track you. Let me state the bleeding fucking obvious, Chimpy. Andrews is only one state premier, so he doesn't have the sweeping powers required to unilaterally introduce a CCP style social creditor tracking system to keep you under the thumb of his own accord. He can't govern you in the authoritarian capitalist way that China does its citizens. That would probably require the cooperation of all the other states and the federal government and its intelligence apparatus. So that's also a bit naive about power. Now, I'm not making a statement of faith in how great Daniel Andrews is as a dude. You know what I mean? Don't get me wrong, Chimpy. I'm talking about power under capitalism. They don't actually want industry to halt. That is not what a capitalist needs, mate. They don't want to have the bottom come out of the economy, Chimpy. I mean, if you think that real power under capitalism is you at home, you are very naive. You aren't Julian Assange, Chimpy. You aren't important enough to be detained as a political prisoner. I'm sorry. Power for these capitalists is obtained, real power, by you going to work all the fucking time. So I know Dan could have gone too hard, unilaterally declaring an evidently bullshit pandemic for political purposes if he wanted to squander his electoral prospects at the state election, or even risk the governor dissolving parliament. Yeah, I get that he could do that. I get that a bad bit of legislation could have given him the apparatus to do that, but my problem is it's a bit delusional to suggest that he absolutely would, because that's not how power works here. And that evidence is an ignorance of where capitalism has been hit in the wallet by the pandemic. Chimpy, just Google capitalism.
The bad news is The bad news for Dan Andrews and his Muppets in the mainstream media is that Nuremberg 2.0 is inevitable.
Righto, so if I came to you and I said to you that one of the figureheads of this movement in Australia is almost certainly some kind of a Russian operative, I don't know, I'm not that into spy novels, I don't really get it, but if I said that to you, you'd probably think, Tom, you've been looking at conspiracy stuff for too long and you should probably take a break. I get that it would probably sound a little like I'm doing some paranoid lefty Russiagate shit if I said that. And on Twitter, that shit annoys me. However, trust me, you don't know how bad and how obvious it is with this Aussie Cossack cunt. Look, just listen to these clips from Four Corners.
Boykov has led groups of Australian Cossacks to Russia, where they fired guns and visited a military training facility. In 2018, Simeon Boykov told a Russian media outlet, "We have a unique opportunity to support Russia from within an enemy state." He was referring to Australia. Four Corners has learned Australian authorities were monitoring Boykov over concerns he may have raised money for separatists in Ukraine and may have travelled to the conflict himself. How can you support a regime that has just tried to murder the opposition leader Alexei Navalny?
Look, if it really was them, they have one comment I can make. They should have done it properly.
So you support the idea of murdering political opponents?
I wouldn't say murdering, I would say liquidating. Murdering is a bad word.
My colleagues in Russia, when they hear about what we do here, they're shocked. I mean, we walk through Canberra, middle of Canberra, 30 Cossacks in uniform with a Russian flag marching to Russian military march. And when the Russians in Russia hear about this, they say, could you imagine if, an Australian detachment was to march down Red Square, unauthorized, to a, some American military march or something like that? Impossible.
Okay, so this guy's essentially trying to run like a little Russian fifth column in Australia. He is using Australia, which he categorises as an enemy state. Those are his words, not mine. To further the interests of Russia. And this is not my paranoia. This is just his stated objective. And don't you think that's a bit weird? But the anti-lockdown movement just goes, okay, Daddy Russia, just come lead me. I love that govern me harder, Daddy meme of theirs. I mean, for one, because it's funny. It's just a funny meme. But also because it's actually kind of them to a T. Like, they'll let any old cunt lead them down the garden path, evidently. So this fucking guy is now paying for the right to speak at their protests, apparently. Like 20k to have Aussie Cossack speak at them and shilling for the UAP. So that's a far-right Australian party, controlled by mining interests, essentially working with what I think are like Russian state interests. Holy shit, man. This is actually mind-bending. And that's kind of like the real big picture danger of this movement, I think, isn't it? They have no concept of where they're taking their own movement. A spoiler alert, I think with all those fucking interests invested in it, I suspect it will not arrive at some amorphous libertarian concept of freedom. I think it will probably arrive somewhere a lot worse than that, to be absolutely honest with you. Okay, so here's what the Russian spy guy said at the Ballarat event. Take a listen to this.
This behaviour by the government, blocking live streams, taking down social media, that's modern day book burning. What happened in the 1930s in Germany, when they would collect all the books and they would burn them and so forth, that's exactly what's happening in Australia. People don't read books, they use social media now. They get their news not from the TV, they get their news from social media. It's a disgrace that it's happening. It's just another sign that Dan Andrews is a deranged, power-hungry dictator. The power's gone to his head, and it's not going to end well. I'll tell you what, it'll end well for the people, and we'll celebrate it. We'll celebrate on Eureka Hill. We'll celebrate it when we'll go to Bunnings and buy rope. We'll get there one day. It's coming, it's coming. There you go.
Okay, so this is a YouTuber, and he arrived at that event with Russian ultra-nationalist bikies trailing his SUV. He uploads regular videos of being difficult with police officers because, that kind of shit is popular with a YouTube audience hungry for stunts. He's been on Alex Jones. He's some sort of a Russian operative, I think. I mean, he says so himself. And now he reckons we're all going to go all day of the rope on Daniel Andrews. And this shit's perfect for this movement in a way, isn't it? Because it's all like the aesthetics of being a big rebel while actually just farming content for a hidden agenda. And I just think, fuck this loser himself. Imagine letting this sus cunt do that at the expense of your movement. Imagine letting this weird Russian op thing do your freedom movement for you. Or how stupid do you have to be?
So our job as Russian patriots, and this is what I call upon my compatriots to do all the time, is to be mobilized and be active in defending Russia. Some people, they think, oh, well, assimilation and so forth, and we can't do much to help Russia. We believe that it's not enough just to be Russian. You must support Russia.
Roll, roll.